Hey everyone, welcome back to Talking Scents. I'm Ben. Today we're going to be having a look at Beaufort's latest fragrance. Came out just a few weeks ago, called Terror and Magnificence. Okay, so if you've seen my videos, if you watched my channel before, you'll know I'm really a big fan of Beaufort London. I think they're great. I'm really into their kind of smokiness that they're with. So when I found out they were releasing a new fragrance, I instantly ordered the sample and sat with it on back order, and then as soon as it came out, I got it. That was a couple of weeks ago. I've sampled it 2 or 3 times since, so this is not a first impression. I've worn it a few times. You only get a couple of mil, but you can sample it generally. And is it any good? Tricky one. Before we get into all that, let's talk about it. So the notes in Terror and Magnificence are what really drew me to it in the first place. It's perfect. They've released it obviously on purpose. It's perfect for this time of year. So it has birch tar, as you might expect from Beaufort London, and then black pepper, saffron, incense. This one's a tricky one. Kiffy or kippy, or I've read it even as kipet, which is like an ancient Egyptian incense. I actually have some of that here. It's an incense that's made of mostly sort of spices and a lot of honey and raisins and wine. It has frankincense, myrrh, all that kind of stuff in it as well. And yeah, you basically boil it down and it becomes this. It's also got a lot of spices and herbs in it as well. So say if we think about it, if we break that kippy down, essentially you can say that the notes in this are birch tar, black pepper, saffron, incense. Kind of the kippy, which would be honey, wine, raisins, spices, pepper maybe, papyrus, tobacco, benzoin, damp stones, Haitian vetiver, labdanum, and myrrh. So it's pretty resinous, pretty incensey, right? So let's give it a sniff, and I'll tell you what I actually think of it. My first impression of this, I was really, really impressed. I have to say, it gets a little bit more complicated, my final opinion. But on my first impression, I'm really impressed, and I still am. It opens with, so you get the signature birch tar from Beaufort, but it's not as strong as a lot of Beaufort's. The very first thing that came to mind with this when I sprayed it was, oh, this is wearable. This is actually, because a lot of Beaufort's are really, that smoke is just it's really brutal. This not so much. The smoke is very, very, very laid back. And then for me, I feel like it's a lot like that labdanum. You get a lot of that, so it feels quite leathery. So you get this quite subtle Beaufort smoke, and again quite a subtle Beaufort leather. Then on top of that, loads of wine. I would say it has dates as a note, or I suppose you could say raisins, like that kind of dried fruit, that dried kind of sticky date raisin kind of thing. And a lot of incense, otherwise a lot of quite sort of frankincense and myrrh. But overriding all of that is this dusty, slight kind of dry feel to it. My very first impression, it's because it's quite an evocative scent, and my very first impression was, this is what an old museum would smell like, or a room in a forgotten museum, or rather a forgotten room in a museum, or if you went to the back room in the warehouse of a museum, this is what it would smell like. There's something old and dusty, and in the same way that I get that vibe. If you know Lord No Nero, it's a very like dusty scent, and it smells like old chairs, you know, like, and if you have those like plush velvet chairs, and if you smack it and the dust comes out, I feel like you get that kind of vibe with Lord No Nero, and this has a similar sort of thing. It's not really the same, but it has this similar, very dry, not dirty. I wouldn't say it's dirty, but I would say it's dusty and like, yeah, just sort of dusty and aged sort of feel to it. It's very nice. I really like it. It's a little bit woody, and the wood feels very aged again. Like it feels like a old treated wood, hardwood. The incense is quite strong, which gives it quite a little bit of a straight edge to it. And then this kind of like very resinous wine, date, dried fruit kind of feel. But it's not dried fruit as in like citrusy fruits or anything like that at all. This is dried fruit as in that thick, resinous, like dates, or you know, dried apricots maybe, that sort of thing, like very like dried fruit kind of vibe, and I really like it. And the wine and the honey also like very prominent, like very, very prominent, and I really, really like it. I think this smells really good. It's already like not as smoky as a lot of Beauforts, which you can either see it as a good or a bad thing. Personally, I feel it's a little bit of a bad thing. Like I like the birch tar and the smoke of Beaufort. That's what I wear Beauforts for, really, is that kind of just unapologetic, aggressive smoke. And this one is lacking in that department, and it's silly to say it's really wearable, therefore it's not as good, because in a sense, like, you know, it's okay not to challenge all the time and just be a good scent. And this is, you know, this is not the sort of scent that everyone's going to enjoy. This does have a certain element of challenge, but it's so much more wearable than a lot of the other Beauforts. It's up there with their more recent things like Rake and Ruin, and what was the other one? Iron Duke. It's up there with Iron Duke in terms of wearability, for sure. It's nowhere near the Hella High Water collection. It's a lot more wearable than that, and I really like it. So when I started this, I said there are things that I don't really know about it. For me, this is where it falls on its face a little bit, is that all this resinous feel, right? This should be a banger that lasts forever, right? It should be like nuclear, but it's not. The performance is quite lacking on it. I found that it only lasted about 2 or 3 hours, and it was almost gone. That was pretty sad, really. Like, when you think how resinous this is, it should last so much longer, but it just doesn't. And that was pretty sad, and it's a bit crap for a scent that's 115 odd quid for 50 ml. Like, you know, you want it to last a bit longer than that. So yeah, but in total, I really love this opening. I really love the scent. I think it's great. I think they've really done well at nailing the whole kiffy vibe. Like when you smell these, they're obviously different because they're not, you know, the same thing, but you can see they're on the same theme. There's this, they've got the same sort of honey, resinous, dried fruit, sort of wine sort of vibe to them both. I would say this is a lot less spicy and much smoother. There's this like sort of quite clean leather, quite gentle smoke, and otherwise the other last note that I really find prominent is the incense, which is not totally out of this world. It's just like a kind of frankincense myrrh kind of incense that we've all smelt before, really. Yeah, it's good. It's nowhere near. I would say if you're into incenses, it's really interesting to try out, because it's not your standard everyday incense. It's very different. If you're into Beauforts because they challenge, I would say you're going to be really disappointed. And I've looked on Facebook groups when it came out. There are a few of us that I know are like really into Beauforts, and the two other people that were sort of as excited about me, as excited as me about getting the boat, they were both really disappointed, and they didn't like it that much. I think they wanted it to challenge and be this like difficult, complex Beaufort scent, and it's not. It is a complex scent in all of the spices and the resins and the incense, but it's not a complicated. It's not a challenging, complicated scent. It's quite simple to wear, really. But it's good. I like it. If it had better longevity, I'd be all over it. So I suppose, yes, who's it for? Personally, I feel like it's quite masculine, but it's just incense, really. So I'm not sure what makes me feel it's masculine. I think it's the fact that it's quite rough with that leather and the incense. It does have it a kind of a rough edge. Does make it feel a little bit masculine, but don't worry about it. You know, it's pretty unisex. If you're a woman that was going to wear a Beaufort, you're not going to care if this is slightly masculine. Let's be honest. So you'll be fine. In terms of like weather, like it's definitely a cold weather scent. It's definitely like autumn, winter. I would say winter more so than autumn. I mean, autumn, winter, there's so much crossover, but I definitely feel like this is a really cold weather scent. I would wear it in the spring, but I'm definitely not in the summer. But otherwise, I think it's light enough to get away in like the spring and possibly even like summer nights, like late summer nights. It would be okay. Dress it up or down. I think it's dress down scent. It's pretty casual. It's pretty rough. It's pretty kind of, yeah, it's a casual scent, really. You could dress it up, but I don't think it would. It's a bit musty. I think you might feel like a bit of an old man if you dress it up and make it playful. I think it's a bit of a rock star scent, like, if you know what I mean. Like, you've got to kind of junk it up a little bit. Otherwise, you might just come across like a stuffy old man. But then if you dress it down and go cash, I think you'll be all right, because it sort of fits the vibe of it a little bit better. But yeah, the long and the short of it is, am I going to buy it? You know, that speaks all of what I can say in a review, right? It tells the biggest tale, like if I'm going to buy it or not. So am I going to buy this? I mean, I really don't know. I got this sample like a couple of weeks ago, like I say, and I still haven't bought it. I think that tells you a lot. I do really like it, but there's other stuff that I would rather have over it. I probably will buy it, but not in a rush. There are other scents that I would rather get in its place first for this winter. I really love the way it's evocative. I really love the way it makes you kind of conjure up these images of old museums. I really love the fact that it's quite different, and it's a different take on incense. But for its price, I really don't like the longevity, and I really don't think I think it's a little bit tame. I think it's got potential to be a little bit stuffy and smell like an old man, unless you kind of pick it right, which is kind of interesting because it makes it not a challenging scent, but not particularly easy to wear either. But it smells really good. It does smell really good, but it's just tricky. Yeah, it's not it's not quite what I was. It's not as I wasn't. It didn't wow me as much as I was hoping. So yeah, really that's Beaufort Terra Magnificence. I will buy it, just probably not yet. Do I think it's worth sampling? Absolutely. If you like incenses, you've got to try it. If you want to try something maybe slightly different for the winter, give it a go, get a sample. Do I recommend blind buying it? Definitely not. But yeah, definitely worth giving a go. I would definitely try it. So yeah, that's Terra Magnificence. Definitely worth a shot. I would say get a sample and give it a go. If you like incenses, definitely get a sample and give it a go. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers.